Hi, I'm Julie Tam, managing broker of LYN Realty in Houston, and I'm in the Meyerland neighborhood today for my weekly Wednesday series, Smarter Real Estate, where I arm you with practical strategies to be a smarter buyer, seller, tenant, or landlord, and also take you along on my real estate adventures. Well, this week we are talking about the 5-year anniversary of the biggest storm ever to hit, Hurricane Harvey. Houston Chronicle's front page story that was in the paper just over 1 month ago with the headline, Harvey's Wake, a resilient Meyerland changes as it recovers. So I was actually interviewed for this article, as I've been interviewed for a number of Chronicle stories. This is our Houston newspaper. And, it talks about folks, like these who have either built a new home, demolished their old one that flooded, or they raised their home, their old home that flooded, or perhaps they moved away from the area or moved to another home in Meyerland because they wanted to stay. So I want to take you on a walk down this street. This is Indigo Street in Meyerland, and kind of point out to you as we go along the different types of homes that are here, what people have done with them, and then our personal experience with a rental house that we manage on this street that did flood, and the trends in terms of pricing that we saw. This is more in depth than what you'll read in this article, though I do encourage you, if you haven't seen this article, to go on the Houston Chronicle website, chron.com, and read it. It's a good read, got a lot of good information about this neighborhood. But as you can see, this is a home across the street, for example, that's one of the original one-story homes. And, they've definitely spruced it up, kept it up nicely, but it hasn't been raised. It's just on the ground level. So homes like this in Meyerland, many of them flooded. Even if it didn't flood before Harvey, so many of those homes ended up flooding during Harvey because it was just such an awful storm. Much of Houston flooded. Areas that were not in floodplains ended up being in floodplains after Harvey. And then previous storms before that, in the couple of years preceding, like the Tax Day flood, the Memorial Day flood, we just had a series of record storms. And of course, Harvey was the one that broke all records. This is a home you can see across the street that is a new construction. This was built post Harvey and it's been raised. Okay, actually, I shouldn't say, I'm not sure if it was built post Harvey or right before Harvey, but it's a relatively new home. And you can see there are several steps that go up to the front door. So that first floor is raised and the garage is sloped up. You can see the driveway sloped up to the garage, and it is, just slightly raised. In some of these cases, the waters would have come up the driveway toward the garage, maybe even gone into the garage a bit, but then not flooded up to the first floor for the homes that have been raised. And some folks, which you'll see in a minute, have actually raised their old homes. So they've taken the entire house and raised it up. That's a very costly endeavor, typically a good 6-figure amount. And we'll see one of those houses in a minute. So with Harvey, what it basically showed people was, do you love Meyerland enough to stay, or are you tired of all these floods and do you want to leave? We found that so many people have continued to stay. There's longtime residents who have been here for decades and they don't want to leave. It's a neighborhood that's very conveniently located right outside the 610 loop, right next to the city of Bel Air, nestled between the city of Bel Air and the rest of Houston. Close proximity to Meyerland Plaza, lots of great restaurants and stores. You got big box stores, also just tons of conveniences, right? And they've got the Jewish Community Center, so good parks and recreation, swimming. So lots of different things that people like to be here, whether they're, a young couple or raising kids, or even older folks who are, retired. They want to be in this neighborhood. And so, yes, they have seen its share of, or the neighborhood, I should say, has seen its share of some crime. There were some home invasions that happened, particularly after Harvey, where folks were coming into the neighborhood, and there was kind of a rash of those. But other than that, it tends to be a quieter neighborhood overall. So as we're about to pass, this is an example of a house that is a one-story that's been remodeled and raised up. And so what happens is, whenever the home would flood, then obviously you're going to have to gut the inside up to whatever level that the waters came up to. You're removing all the sheetrock and insulation behind it. In case you, kind of left things there and didn't take quick action, right? There may be mold remediation to be done on the wood and everything behind, that behind the sheetrock once you've removed it and you've discovered what's back there. And lower cabinets, would have been damaged. You would have had to replace some of the lower appliances. For example, if you had an oven or a range that was lower, or refrigerator, where the water would have entered. And so in a lot of cases, when you would have to rip out cabinets, then it would be time to also replace those countertops and fixtures and sinks and kind of take the opportunity to update. I'll be passing a rental home that we manage, and I'll talk to you about what happened there. But as you can see, here's an empty lot. There's no random empty lots like this in the middle of a developed street in Meyerland. So obviously there was a house there before that got raised. And it's funny because we're using the word raise, not raised up, in this case, R-A-Z-E-D, raised as in torn down. So it's ready for someone to build a new house on. And so as we walk along, this rental house that we're going to be coming up to, it flooded during Harvey. That was the first time known to the owners, and it got, a few inches, and basically it just sat there not for too long, and then the waters receded out of the house. But that was enough to do what I described as far as gutting and replacing a lot of things. And what's interesting is I'll share with you some pricing changes that have happened over the years for that rental house. And sales prices would somewhat closely mirror this, right? Where home prices were just going up and up and up before Harvey, and then boom, Harvey hits, and it's like, oh my gosh, nobody wants to move here right now, right? It's kind of a disaster. People are uncertain. But then after enough times pass, it's kind of like anything else where people forget easily. They start getting more comfortable with the idea and start moving in. Both folks who are, from the Houston area moving into the neighborhood, or folks that are from out of town or out of state moving here, usually for work relocation. Houston brings a lot of jobs, and or other reasons. And so then people are coming and moving into Meyerland. So here we are. Here is the rental house. This house was not raised up after the storm. That would have been really costly. It was, flood insurance got claimed, and, we got the work done. And I want to show you by way of kind of typing numbers onto this calculator on my husband's iPhone, that back in 2011, we rented this home out for $1,750. $1,750, that was 2011, so that's 11 years ago. Now it's 2022. The next year, we were able to raise the rent by $50, so up to $1,800, okay? The year after that, in 2013, wow, that was a huge jump. So 10 times the jump as previous, raised by $500 to $2,300. Then the following year, not as big of a jump, just $100 to $2,400. Now, that was at its peak in recent time, maybe peak ever, and then post-Harvey remodel. So in 2017, luckily, the house was actually vacant when Harvey hit. So that didn't cause as much problem because there was no tenant in there for their things to be damaged and having to clear all of that out, and those types of issues. So it was already vacant. We had just finished making the house ready, actually, and putting it on the market to lease out again. And then unfortunately this happened. So by the time we finished the remodeling later in the year in 2017, it only took us like a couple of months or so because we're really fast. We were very experienced, and we only had about 5 homes out of the more than 300 rental properties that we manage that were damaged in Harvey in terms of any sort of flooding at all. And so as you can see in 2017, so 3 years after this $2,400 price, we went down by $200 down to $2,200. So there definitely was a drop that you could just see happen after Harvey. But since then, the rent has come up, okay? It hasn't come up to quite as high as it was before Harvey, but it's pretty close. The current rent, I think, is somewhere in the $2,300 range. I can't remember exactly, and I forgot to look it up before this video, so that's okay. Now, if we swing around here, we can see a new build happening. So this is an example of a home that's being built in light of Harvey and the rules that are now in place by the city of Houston in terms of how high you need to lift the house up above ground to build. So you can see the double front doors right there and how high that is off the ground. They haven't installed the staircase yet, but you can imagine there being a number of steps to get up to that front door. It's very much like our new house, actually. It's probably a similar height because we're both in the floodplain. So that's what you see there. So just interesting to see how this neighborhood has evolved. A lot of beautiful new homes just coming in, as you can see, a variety of architecture. The schools, the public schools that this neighborhood is zoned to, are desirable as well. So yeah, anyway, hope you've enjoyed this video, found it, insightful, and just taking a stroll through a street in Meyerland. And I hope you will send me some feedback by posting a comment or sending me a message, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And please like this video if you enjoyed it and you want to see more. And I'll see you on a future Smarter Real Estate Weekly Wednesday video. Hope you have a great week. Until then, I'm Julie Tam, Managing Broker of LYN Realty in Houston.